Christmas in Connecticut. What could be more perfect setting for Christmas than Colonial New England with its snow-covered landscapes, evergreen trees, and deeply religious population? As we look back, it appears to be the inspiration for those nostalgic Christmas times when the season was celebrated with family and friends, yet without the commercialism of today. Is this your idea of an early New England Christmas? If so, think again. In early New England, Christmas was against the law. The Puritans viewed Christmas as unbiblical and marred by gluttony, drunkenness, dancing, gambling, and begging. From 1659 to 1681, the celebration of Christmas was actually outlawed in Boston. Anyone exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. Not to be outdone, in 1659, Connecticut banned both Christmas and mincemeat pies. Bah, humbug! Although he wasn't born until much later, Charles Dickens nevertheless summed up the colonial New England attitude when he wrote, "Bah, humbug." That's right, the colonial New Englanders had no use for Christmas. Most considered the holiday to be a pagan celebration and wanted nothing to do with it. There was no Bible reference or historical reason to claim that Jesus was born on December 25th. It was only in the 4th century that the church officially decided to observe Christmas on December 25th. And this date was chosen not for religious reasons, but simply because it happened to mark the approximate arrival of the winter solstice, an event that was celebrated long before the advent of Christianity. The Puritans were correct when they pointed out, and they pointed it out often, that Christmas was nothing but a pagan festival covered with a Christian veneer. When the Puritans left England for these shores, Christmas was celebrated in Old England with behavior that we would find offensive today. There was a lot of eating and drinking, which led to the mockery of authority, along with aggressive begging. The Puritans had their reasons to try to restrict such celebrations. However, it was a struggle. The founding fathers of Massachusetts and Connecticut never won.
Today, our Christmas customs come from many nations and cultures. Evergreen trees weren't always brought indoors and decorated, and Santa didn't just land in the New World with the Pilgrims. Some of our traditions were brought here by immigrants from around the world. Others were actually made up and created by social reformers attempting to change the focus of December celebrations. Christmas was celebrated in other colonies, but not in New England. In contrast to Puritan New England, American colonies settled by Anglicans and also Pennsylvania celebrated Christmas while it was still illegal in New England. Colonial Virginians enjoyed a 12-day celebration, complete with mincemeat pie. Christmas decorations were common in the colonial South. Boxwood and bayberry were key ingredients in the holiday wreaths that adorned their southern homes. An Old English rhyme says, "Holly and ivy, box and bay, put it in the church on Christmas Day." They imported pomegranates and pineapple for decorations, and a special treat at the end of the holiday season. Benjamin Franklin and Christmas music in the Federal period. Benjamin Franklin invented an instrument with a melodious sound that was popular for playing Christmas carols. It was called the glass harmonica, the Italian word for harmonics. The contraption was unique in structure and soothing in sound. A prisoner of war set up Connecticut's first Christmas tree. In 1777, Connecticut's first Christmas tree was decorated by a Hessian soldier, a German who had been captured early in the American Revolution. He was living as a prisoner at the Noden Reed Farm, now the site of a museum operated by the Windsor Locks Historical Society. The site is listed on the National Register of Historical Places. Anti-British feeling was strong after the Revolution, and English customs fell out of favor, including Christmas in those parts of the country which had formerly celebrated the holiday. Congress was in session on December 25, 1789, the first Christmas under America's new Constitution.
Christmas made a comeback in the 1800s, and Santa gained acceptance in New England. In 1809, Washington Irving wrote a story which resulted in changing a traditional Dutch custom he claimed had been formerly practiced in New York. In earlier times, on December 24th, St. Nicholas Eve, the Dutch would leave shoes out for St. Nicholas. Irving's story had the children leave stockings hanging out instead. At that time, the Dutch children believed Santa traveled by wagon with the assistance of a magic white horse. But in 1821, Irving's book, The Children's Friend, had Santa traveling by sleigh, pulled by reindeer. Silent Night was written in 1818 in Austria. The German carol Silent Night provided Christmas Eve music in an Austrian church where the organ had recently broken. It was translated into English in 1863 and has since become one of the most beloved carols in the world. Americans first sent New Year's greetings to friends and family. Gradually, the custom was changed to Christmas. A few were personally delivered, but most were mailed. As early as 1822, the rush of Christmas mail became a burden. The local postmaster petitioned the Congress to stop the sending of Christmas cards by post. But the American public had gotten into the spirit of Christmas, and there was no stopping it. The poem about the right jolly old elf dressed in red and fur and driving his sleigh and reindeer was first published in the Troy, New York Sentinel on December 23, 1823. About 13 years later, a magazine editor attributed it to Clement Clark Moore. This is challenged by others who claim it was written by Henry Livingston, who was a friend of Moore. Whoever wrote it created a new look for the Christmas gift giver, making the color of his clothes specific and making him heavier than earlier Santas.
Towards the middle of the 1800s, Connecticut folks changed their minds about Christmas. Roger S. Baldwin was governor when the state legislature officially recognized Christmas as a legal holiday in 1845. But here in the Naugatuck Valley, such changes came slowly. At the Great Hill Schoolhouse, a joint district between Seymour and Oxford, school was in session on December 25th, as marked in the diaries of the people of that neighborhood in 1850. Connecticut author Harriet Beecher Stowe was among a group of reformers who sought to turn Christmas into a child and family-centered celebration. She wrote a fanciful, totally inaccurate book about the first Christmas celebrated by the Pilgrims after they arrived on the Mayflower. It was historic nonsense and pure propaganda, but the American public loved it, and Christmas became a much-loved Christmas holiday. 1850 brought trees of peace in a tense decade. The decade before the Civil War was a time of tension in the United States. During this time, Christmas first began to emerge as our national holiday. Businesses closed and decorated Christmas trees became fashionable. Tree decorations were edible, gilded fruits and nuts, strings of popcorn and cranberries, and molded pastry confections. 1850s Christmas trees were candle-lit, but they were very difficult to wire to the branches. The candle had to be carefully placed so as not to come into contact with branches or ornaments. No tree was ever without a bucket of water by its side, and lit trees were never left unattended. At this time, wax was very expensive, so oftentimes lamps were fashioned from nutshell halves, filled with oil and a wick.
Came Upon a Midnight Clear was written by Edmund Sears in 1859, pictured on the right. The music was composed by Richard Storrs Willis, who is on the left, in 1860. The composer was an 1841 graduate of Yale University. The hymn became one of the enduring popular hymns, Christmas carols, which we still sing today. There was a Christmas tree in the White House in 1856. President Franklin Pierce, a native of New Hampshire, had the first Christmas tree set up in the White House. The song Jingle Bells has its ties to Connecticut's James Pierpont, a graduate of Yale, the college his grandfather had helped to found. He tried many occupations and never succeeded at any of them. He was in turn a teacher, a lawyer, a minister and chaplain, the loser in several elections, and a file clerk. If that was all he had ever done, he would be obscure and forgotten. However, one afternoon he penned the lines of a song as a gift for his family, friends, and congregation. In that piece, he left behind a permanent Christmas gift for all of us. His song about the simple pleasures of whizzing across the snow in a horse-drawn sleigh, Jingle Bells, is known and enjoyed around the world.